Good afternoon. It is Monday, November the 11th, 2024. And I'm going to, for the next kind of 4 to 6 weeks, I'm going to be reading through the Gospel of John. And what I'm going to try to do is post a video or two per chapter, just something that stands out to me as I read through it. In fact, what I'm going to do, and this is something I just started doing this year, is I'm trying to write out the entire book that I'm reading. So last month I wrote the whole book of Romans, and it just caused me to slow down and kind of really pay attention to what the scripture really says. So right now I am recording the entire book of John, and so what I'm going to do first is this morning is read just the first 3 verses of chapter 1. And I want you to pay attention to this. John 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and apart from him, nothing came into being that has come into being. And so first, what I think you see is that the language and some of the words that John is using here, the imagery, really look a lot like Genesis chapter 1. The fact that he says, like, in the beginning, those are the first 3 words of Genesis. The title that they assign to Jesus is he calls him the Word. And you learn a couple things about Jesus as the Word in verse 1. He says that the Word, Jesus, was with God in the beginning. So that's the first thing you learn, is that there's been this ongoing eternal relationship that Jesus has with the Father. If you understand that just a little bit, I think it'll help gain an appreciation for what we learn in the end of the book when Jesus is being torn away in his relationship with God as he's going to the cross, and he's going through this agony and this pain and this hurt, and he's sweating drops of blood, and he's seeing that his life on earth is ending. It's being taken from him, but he's willingly giving it up, and he's willing to say, "Not my will, but your will be done, Father." But if you look at just the relationship, it can be challenging for us because all of us have relationships that we've had for a long time, and then something happens and you're no longer as close to that person as you once were, or that person passes away, and it's painful, but we don't know what eternal relationship looks like. We also don't know what perfect relationship looks like. We live with broken relationships. Jesus and the Father have 2 things that are very different in their relationship. One is it's ongoing, it's eternal, eternity past, and it also never change. It'll be eternity in the future. They will always be in relationship. The second is that they have perfect relationship. There is no difference in God's will and Jesus's will, and we learn that in the book of John, is that they are perfectly aligned in their goals, their method, their works, their abilities, and because of that, there is no disagreement. So they're eternal, but they're also completely shared and equal in their desires. And so that's really important to understand in our theology, that Jesus always has been with the Father, and he's always existed. He was not a created being. I think we take that for granted, that, oh yeah, I get that. I don't know that we oftentimes really dwell on that. That Jesus has always been. The second thing is that he says the Word was God, and he was in the beginning with God. And he also says that all things came into being through him. And this is something that we have to understand when we go back to the book of Genesis. When we read that, we need to see that God's activity of creating the planets, the animals, the entire earth, and creating light, all these in just incredibly amazing things that God did. in creating the world, Jesus was right there with him, doing it with him, working with him. And the reason I think all of this is important is it's simply this, that Jesus' claims to be the Father, or to be equal to the Father, to be the Son of God, we can take that for granted because we've had 2,000 years of church history behind us. We have the Scripture, and when we're talking to people or when we're reading ourselves, we can easily start thinking of, oh yeah, he's the Son of God. But when you look at the claims that Jesus makes throughout all of the Gospels, or the claims that were made about him of being the Son of God, he's claiming deity. So either Jesus was this crazy person, um, which it's hard to look at the Gospels, even if they're just remotely accurate, and see a crazy person that is drawing people to him. And I don't see many people oftentimes claiming that Jesus is a crazy person. There's that option. The other option is that Jesus was the Son of God, which is what we believe, what I believe, or he was a really diabolical misleader of people. A total, he would have to be a narcissist and the worst deceiver in all of history, bar none, not even close, because he led people to believe that he was the Son of God, and through different schemes, he tricked them and convinced them that he was able to do really special things, and and so I think that's really what it comes down to. Is I think he's either a really horrible human being, or he's the Son of God. I feel like it's really those two things that we're kind of left with, because what we believe comes down to the fact that we believe that Jesus is completely worthy of worship, not just as a good man, not just as a leader of people, not as somebody who wants to do good to other people and loves other people, but he was the Son of God. That's what he claimed to be, and he can claim that because he's always been with God. He'll always be with God, and he was there for creation. So think about that if you look through the Gospels, that Jesus set himself up to be the Son of God through his words. And we have a choice, either to believe him and take him at his word, or to turn our backs on him. So something to think about as you're looking through the Gospels. Take care. Have a good day.